How are you? How is everyone? Let's begin with the latest world news. This time, we're going to focus on what's happening with 3 and Atlas and their anomalies. The latest things that have been happening, the most recent images that have also been shared by different astronomers. This time, well, some of them are amateurs, others are professionals, but here is an image taken on November 22 of this year at 7 p.m. 25 UTS with a 0.5 meter or 50 centimeter telescope. This was at the moment when Atlas was projected near the galaxy NGC 4454. In the background, this is in the direction toward the sun, located in the lower left corner, according to what can be observed. One of the most spectacular images that has been observed. And well, thanks to the whole community that's joining us live, let's get to the information, to what's happening. I'm very grateful to those who are watching us on PP Live. So on this channel, well, we'll be doing broadcasts at least once a day. So also, well, stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so here. Now let's check out the details and move to the next image. Also, these images that catch our attention today show how extraordinary the Atlas IIIa is. Regardless of the anomalies, the phenomenon itself is already very interesting, right? Let's go over some important points. Amateur astronomers and astrophotographers have taken some of the most important images from the 22nd, but there are others. For example, this one here is from the 21st. It's another pretty interesting image. This one would have been taken by Paul Crax. We've already shared some images from this astronomer, haven't we? Is this image interesting? If we can zoom in a little on the image, let's see if we can take a closer look at it. I talked. I lost it. Where is it? Is it there? This image is really interesting. Let me try zooming in more. There it is. Leave it to me. No, we're at full. There it is. This is one of the most interesting ones. Let's look at some reactions to the new images. This is by Paul Crax, November 21st, as I mentioned. Another image. Let's look at another. The images too. This was taken on the 22nd. Hold on. We need to zoom out a bit or we won't see it. Is this one right here? This was taken on the 22nd at 5:28 UTC by a 315-meter telescope. This was taken by Peter Carlson Lake from Spain. This was taken from Spain. The following image was photographed. Let's put it over here. There it is. This is the comet right there. There. This was photographed by Elena Walter with a 432-meter telescope, and this was photographed from Chile. Taken on November 24th, these will be the most recent ones because they were taken yesterday. The tail is barely visible. Who is vegan? Unlike the other images we've seen, this one, for example, from day 22. Right, this one? At least you can't see the other one. Many times it also has to do with not only the daylight, but it also often has to do with the shutter. How long the shutter stayed open, making the image, the photograph. Many times the shutters stay open for a little while. And well, that also allows you to see the tail a little more. Oh well, what is it that is known? What are the most interesting details? First, this interstellar object, well, it has deployed what they call a pulse-link structure. The relationship with the anti-tail. That's already been calculated, right? The calculations for this image we just saw are done. Let's see if we can observe it. This one's from the 20th. What was it? The 21st? No, the 22nd. Is this the one from the 22nd? Have they calculated the size of this anti-tail we're seeing here? In fact, you can't even see the whole thing. Let's leave it longer and see if you can spot it. There it is. The tail just keeps going. It's really long. It's about 1 million kilometers long. Just imagine that. And this one, this anti-tail is being launched. It's being shot, so to speak, toward the sun. It's pointed toward the sun. This defies the pressure of the solar wind. This, right from the start, is something very interesting. Remember that in all of this, there's solar wind here, throwing everything this way, right? Projecting it this way. So the fact that the antitail is 1,000,000 kilometers long but goes against the solar wind really draws a lot of attention. It contradicts their reports on solar wind pressure, and well, in addition, its trajectory also confirms something else, the non-gravitational acceleration, which doesn't fit with the conventional models of comet physics. The captured images also show this collimated structure, an acceleration that has already been statistically validated with a deviation of 10 sigma a mathematical certainty that they say is, to put it mildly, overwhelming, right? I mean, it's flight precision. Let's call it that, right? It doesn't seem related at all, for example, to the MOA or to other comets and other objects. Have you seen how they go tumbling, how they don't seem to have precision? Yesterday, we were making the comparison between the different comets, and you see that your skin gets goosebumps when you see the characteristic of the others compared to this comet, or the difference is just too much. It's amazing. Now, that's the topic, right? What is being witnessed with Atlas is no longer just an astronomical curiosity, as it was initially said to be. This is an exotic comet, right? It's a fascinating astronomical curiosity. Right now, it's already becoming a problem. What do I mean by a problem? I mean that it's a problem when it comes to explaining the mathematics of this object. So, you see, there are a lot of prejudices among them all over the world, right? In every subject, in every area, there are prejudices. And there are people who are very narrow-minded. But that's a bit of a separate issue, right? Let's talk openly about the topic, okay? And has this already become a problem? To apply for physics? He himself has mentioned it, right? He says this is already becoming a problem of applied physics. Because simply, well, if you want to see it as a natural comet, it's very hard to justify what's happening with this comet as something natural, right? Another thing that draws attention about this antitail is that it goes against the wind, and the wind itself travels at 400 kilometers per second. And it should be expelling mass at an unsustainable rate of billions of tons, right? To be able to do this antitail would have to be throwing out billions. Let's keep this number in mind, right? Billions of material if it were a natural comet, right? This would have to be billions of tons of material to be able to produce an antitail. Because I'm going to say that yes, there have been comets that have had small antitails. Is that true? Or have there been comets that have had antitails that lasted very little and were small? Here we're talking about a very large antitail pointing toward the sun. What would that be equivalent to? He says, at a rate that isn't sustainable for a natural comet, he says. For this to be justified as a natural comet, it would have had to expel mass, the comet's own mass, at a simply unsustainable rate of billions of tons. However, the object accelerates more than the amount of mass it's losing. If it loses that much mass in a natural object, it would have to accelerate by X amount, right? And this one accelerates much more than what it loses in mass. That makes it an even more extraordinary object, right? Here's an unsettling hypothesis for many, right? And we'll get to that topic in a moment. First of all, let me greet you, right? Because we hardly ever see each other here on this channel. It's been a while since our last stream. We recently streamed with Kiers, and we'll also be streaming here on PP Clips. To focus on a single topic, especially when the topic is very interesting, because sometimes on PP Live we end up talking about a lot of other topics, right? Obviously, but when the topic is important, we'll clearly try to stick to just one topic and to broadcast and talk with the community. Greetings to Rodrigo, Julio, and El Monche Loco. How have you been, Monche? To everyone watching live, feel free to comment. I appreciate it. Many people aren't familiar with the PP Clips channel, but it's actually a sister channel to PP in Vivo. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. We're already close to 100,000 subscribers. So maybe soon we'll reach those 100,000 subscribers. I think we're close to 90,000 if I'm not mistaken, right? We're around there. We're already getting close. Look, That's the unsettling part, right? The unsettling part, and well, people don't really want to talk about it much. More than Loeb and a few others, right? He says, here's a hypothesis. I'm not claiming it's certain, but it enters the realm of hypothesis with some evidence. No, it's just a hypothesis, I imagine. But he says this one has evidence. If we apply the physics of technological propulsion systems, whether chemical or ionic, then the object would make sense. In that case, the physics would be logical. I mean, he talks about a possible directed escape flow, which requires much less mass to generate that thrust. So he says, in that case, we would be talking about an object that not only falls toward the sun, but also seems to be navigating through the solar wind with a density and coherence that nature... It would be hard for nature to recreate that on its own, right? It would be difficult for it to do the same. Maybe the impossible. I mean, now that we're getting into the topic of the impossible, well, the impossible doesn't exist, right? I mean, nature always surprises us, right? So we can't rule out that it might be natural either, right? I mean, but it's really hard for it to be natural, right? It's getting harder and harder, isn't it? They say we're facing a countdown that would be critical. The countdown is one day, one exact day, called December 19th, 2025. That will be the closest approach to Earth, which is 269 million kilometers. That's the closest approach. That's the moment when the comet will be seen best. Right there, telescopes like Hubble, James Webb, and others will detect spectroscopic signatures of artificial propulsion. Oh, or from ice sublimation, meaning it's melting, right? I mean, but if by the 19th we still see the object and it's still intact, or let's say more or less with the same mass, he says, wait, Nardito, this is because of all the material it already released. It should have disappeared by now, or at least shrunk significantly. The object, right? Hasn't it lost much mass? It should already be either split or disappeared, etc., right? Well, actually, it was said that when it passed behind the sun at perihelion, from that point on, the object would practically already be split into pieces. I'm not sure what, but the object continues, right? It's still an interesting topic, isn't it? This event, he says, is not only relevant for astronomers, it's a cultural turning point. That's why it's important. We're talking about something that clearly hasn't been understood. Also, that's how the media is. I mean, the media reports in waves. They don't report because they genuinely want to inform. Many of them, let's say, so we don't judge all of them, but yes, a large part of them, right? I'm going to give you a very simple example. I mean, how they've been talking about the drones or these UAVs or objects that have been appearing around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Washington, this whole region. Suddenly, someone in the media said, this topic is old news and that's enough. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Now let's move on to another topic, then another one, and then another. And that's how it goes, right? So that happens very often, right? Hey Pepe, the drones just stopped showing up, right? So the drones haven't stopped showing up? Well, as a conclusion, people keep complaining. Obviously, when this started happening, I started getting into the forums from those states, right? What are people saying there in the New Jersey forums? They say you go in and sign up there and you just leave it because you think, well, let's see what happens. What are people who live in the area still saying? People keep seeing objects every day, but the thing is, the topic just went out of fashion. So they stopped reporting it. And that's it. The media coverage is over. Even though the situation is still there, every now and then some media outlet might say, hey, look, something was seen here or there. But let's say the topic just disappears, right? Same thing here. Even as things keep happening with the comet, an astronomer or National Aeronautics and Space Administration says, don't worry, it's completely natural. Great, everything's clear. Goodbye, forget it, and let them know. Hey, what do you mean forget about it? None of the anomalies have been explained. They still can't explain them. Well, why are you dropping the subject? Is it National Aeronautics and Space Administration? Let them explain the anomalies. No, it's just National Aeronautics and Space Administration. See you then. They leave it there. And that's it, right? Some media outlets you have to acknowledge. For example, Newmax, I don't know the outlet, but I've seen that they interview very important personalities in general of all kinds, right? We know it's a fairly well-known media outlet. Then I looked into who they are. But it's one of the few media outlets that have shared the information. Some other mid-sized outlets have been giving a voice to this Noah, for example, right? Other than that, nothing else, right? According to what they report starting from the 19th, but this is already happening with the Hubble. The James Webb already holds a lot of unpublished information. There's plenty available. That we don't have it is another thing, right? But anyway, starting from the 19th will be the best time to detect what the information is. Cosmic spectrum, artificial propulsion cosmic spectrum, according to what New York itself reports. There are many tools. You will see the image, for example, to better detect the mass, the speed, the size, and so on. Right? Levy himself says that's not the point, and he agrees. It's not about belief. It's not a religious issue like believing in something today for various reasons. It's not a matter of belief, it's just a matter of data. That's it, period. I mean, it can be explained perfectly. Now let's move on to the next topic, right? We can keep admiring the comet if you want, but let's move on to the next topic. But no, it's not about wanting to see the clear data, and that's the part that really catches my attention. He says it's not about believing, it's about data. Data exists, for example, showing an object maneuvering with a statistical certainty that makes the explanation of a space rock increasingly difficult to defend from a mathematical point of view. And when they give the example of how it was flying or how it was floating, right? Let's say Oumuamua was going, tumbling through space when this object isn't tumbling but rather has a precision that's hard to explain, at least, right? Hey. It can't be a natural comet. No one said that. I mean, is there also a possibility that all those anomalies happen to a natural object? It could be, right? I mean, we can't rule out or close ourselves off to any idea except, let's look at the data. He says something interesting. Listen to him. The ram pressure of the antitail exceeds that of the solar wind, right? That's why this image matters. This force is surpassing that of the solar wind itself, okay? But it's been days now, not just hours or seconds, that this has been happening. It's still generating this antitail, right? This implies that the density of the outermost mass, he says the outermost mass in the antitail is 1,000,000 times greater than the density of the solar wind. For this to happen, the mass of the solar wind is 1, and the mass of this comet is 1,000,000 times greater than the density of the solar wind. This suggests that there is what they call challenging structural coherence. In other words, from that perspective, it's more likely explained by something artificial than natural. So the probabilities, let's say, increase in that direction. And with that, I think it gives us a pretty interesting idea of what's going on. In this case, let's quickly go to the comments and we'll be back in a bit. If another report or situation arises, we'll discuss it live again, says Pepe. It's a spacecraft, he says. He compares, it has the same characteristics as Buga's sphere, he says, when it comes to its weight, for no reason. Someday? Well, no, the sphere is something else, right? The sphere. Honestly? Look, I haven't followed up on it. I've seen the data. They've given me a bunch of documents. And at least for me, honestly, with the data, for me, this doesn't convince me right now. Honestly, right? I don't doubt that there are interesting things. I've talked about it with some friends who have been close to the case. And at least for me, it leaves me with a lot. It's not a topic that's being widely investigated in the scientific world, but in this case, it is. Only Mao-san and those he chooses, right? When this object is handed over to independent universities and it gets published in papers and everything, then we can gladly talk about the subject. It'll be interesting. We'd gladly offer Musan or anyone else space here, right? Thank you. But honestly, we should expand on that, right? For example, the case of this comet, everyone can see this comet and all the astrophysicists and astronomers analyze it. Anyone can discuss, view, observe, and access all the information. The sphere case or cases of other spheres, since it's not the only one, it's very interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it's not interesting, but what it needs is to be expanded. I mean, to expand the information so that it has more consistency, which I don't doubt it does. I don't doubt there are very interesting things about it, right? I'd like to see that. I'd love to. And we've talked about that with these friends too, because, well, at the end of the day, if it's something so extraordinary, other institutes and other places should be investigating it to give the subject more credibility. Let's see what happens, right? Greetings. How have you been, crazy monk? He says, curious, after so much time traveling, and he didn't disintegrate before. Crazy monk asked, how are you, monk? For how many suns? Has this object gone through that many, assuming it is as old as they say? How many things must it have gone through? Are we talking about it being between 5,000 and 6,000? They still claim it's up to 13 billion years old, nearly as old as the universe itself. Around there, that's approximately what it's about, around 13 billion years. So obviously there comes a point where they don't know. I mean, we really don't know. It's believed to be very ancient because of the path it's coming from. We have to remember there's this cloud of gold. Well, it's coming from an area behind that cloud of gold. I mean, it's coming from much farther away. That's an interesting topic, isn't it? What if it were 100% natural? The explanation they gave is the object has been moving forward for so long that little by little it starts running into small things and they start to accumulate. They start to accumulate. So in that pile of things, in theory, it kind of absorbs them. Here, the big question is, okay, assuming it's accumulating things, isn't it accumulating things for such a long time? You say, well, its speed is unsustainable. There's no way to justify that speed. Now, maybe there was an explosion. So, okay, there was an explosion. Let's suppose it was an explosion that happened X thousands of years ago, and it pushed the object, right? And it left this piece, right? Was it a bigger piece? Assuming it left a smaller piece. So could the explosion be justified? Okay, so it's moving at a constant speed. It's with that explosion, right? The point is that when it got close to the sun, it slowed down first. I mean, it got close to the sun and decreased its speed. And when it passed the sun, it increased its speed. You say, wait a minute. Yes, if it was due to an explosion and has a set speed. But why does it speed up near the sun? Or does it slow down? And then, after passing perihelion, just a few days later, not even that. Because you say, well, it sped up because of a chemical reaction when it passed by the sun. Perfect, everything's fine. The thing is, it didn't speed up on the day of perihelion, not even a day after. It was around the third day or so. That's when it's detected that it accelerates. We'd have to check the exact days to see exactly at what point it accelerated. Suppose the chemical reaction took time. It wasn't exact and didn't occur at perihelion, but was heating up. A chemical reaction occurs and speeds up, possibly after 2 or 3 days. Okay, that's fine. The speed at which it accelerates is measurable in the end. And so many comets have already passed in the past. It doesn't matter if they're interstellar or not, they've already passed. Chemical reactions are always the same no matter where you're from. That the chemical reaction of any element, let's say whichever one, right? Whatever hydrogen it is. That chemical reaction of hydrogen, well, it's the same reaction as the one I have here at home. That hydrogen, the one you have, so to speak, the one you have. On the other side of the universe, it's the same. It's a chemical after all, and the reaction is the same. So that reaction, well, it should be the same, but it's not. I mean, it is so far, it's measured by light spectrums. Ah, look, it has this one and this one and this chemical. Ah, that's how we know what chemicals it has and what their reactions are. So that's super interesting. That topic is really interesting. And well, that's it. Look, there's the link. Let's go now. Let's go live. I'm leaving here. Let's go to the news of all kinds, right? The international news. There's the link. String is sharing it. And actually, the video itself will go automatically, I think. I think it goes automatically to the new video. We're live now. So let's get started, right? Right away, immediately. So see you there. Thank you very much for being here, for sharing, for being here with us. We'll see you in just a moment. Let's go with that.